69 points they finish on, so it's as they started at the start of the day. Atalanta finished third, Inter fourth, and missing out by a solitary point, AC Milan finishing in fifth, and they will have to content themselves, Gab, with Europa League football. We were breathless watching it all, Gab. I can only imagine what you were going through, trying to keep your eye on three different games. Try and sum it all up for us, first of all.
Well, 4 games, actually, because there was also Daniele De Rossi's farewell. Or even 5, because that Genoa-Fiorentina game, they were basically operating and playing based on whatever was happening with Empoli and Milan. It's absolutely unreal. This is so Inter. I mean, this is brand Inter. Make things as difficult for yourself as you can. Go and play with people's emotions. It was absolutely unreal. It's probably a reflection of their season, arguably for the second season in a row, where it takes sort of last-ditch heroics to get them into the top 4. You know, on balance, we really need to talk about Atalanta, though, because this is unreal what they've achieved. They outscored Juventus by 7 goals this season. Juventus, the champions, they have a tiny wage bill. They played outstanding football. They showed that there's another way of playing, and hats off to them. I know Juventus won the title, but Atalanta certainly won Serie A this season as well.
How did you view it on? I mean, we were focusing on that Inter game. We had to at the end because Empoli were just banging on that door. Inter refused to close it out.
Look, I know it's like a cauldron-like atmosphere and nerves are jangling, but I was looking at the coach on the sideline and I'm wondering to myself, what is he getting across to his players? Because the defending, the tracking, the distance between the lines was absolutely atrocious. Now, is that just a one-off? Is that just because the kitchen sink was being thrown at them? I hope not. But I'll tell you what, for the neutral, it was incredibly exciting.
Yeah. Gab?
I was going to say it's Inter. I mean, once he made the decision to send on Dalbert, who is a bit of a running joke among Inter fans. Sacrificing Perisic, who of course had picked up an injury himself. You mentioned all the weird things. Keita, what do you, apart from that very stupid thing at the end where, he pulls down Dragowski as if Dragowski can take giant steps and get back and save the goal. The reason he was booked in the first place was because he scores. You guys, listen, it probably wasn't illegal to remove your jersey after to celebrate a goal back when you played. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't. But equally, why would you do that when you know you're going to get booked and you're 5 minutes into the second half? It's just the most, you have no idea what's going to happen after, just the most extraordinary acts of stupidity and self-harm. But in the end, Inter got it out. And I have to say, Samir Handanovic, some of those saves that he made today, I mean, both keepers, but Handanovic in particular, when it counted, a big chunk of this Champions League is down to him.
Stevie, football, eh?
Yeah, it is, and you can kind of see why. You can kind of see why Empoli are going to go down. Defensively they were a shambles as well.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the keeper, this game wouldn't have thrown us the excitement it did. But really, it's difficult not to think of the shambles that Inter were at the end of this game. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's not how you do it; it's getting it done, and they've got it done.
Gab, thoughts on AC Milan missing out by the narrowest of margins? Ultimately, probably weren't expected to be Champions League contenders this season, but very much were.
Well, I mean, they kind of had to be given their financial situation, given the mess that they inherited from the previous owners. Gattuso came out afterwards, and he said that he was proud, even when they played poorly, and there were many times they played poorly this season. They still kept fighting, they still kept pushing on. This was a team that went into preseason with no idea who their owners were going to be, whether there even would be owners. Everybody, he came out, he said everybody seemingly, all the good players wanted to leave. And then you have this game, and we need to give a shout out to Frank Kessie as well. He's been up and down, but that key penalty, or what looked like the key penalty to get them into Europe at that stage, to have this sort of kid who's still, 22 years old, to have him just step up and take it and put it away so coolly, just like he put away the goal earlier. This kid is going places. He's got so much heart, so much bravery, and maybe in some ways a striking contrast to the penalty that Inter took and missed with Mauro Icardi.
So confirmation, Atalanta and Inter in the Champions League at the bottom half of the table, gents. The tears for Empoli. Look how close it was. In the end, it was the head-to-head record with Genoa that sent them down to Serie B. Well, the headline in Mundo Deportivo says it all. Another blow. Reaction to Barcelona crumbling to Valencia, losing in the Copa del Rey final yesterday. 24 hours on, Gab, as the dust starts to settle. What's the latest on Ernesto Valverde and speculation about his future?
Well, already today, and then I think you'll see it in your headlines tomorrow, there's stories about the Barcelona president, Bartomeu, consulting those around him, making sure he's... I'm told that, or certainly the story is being reported as it's more of a confirmatory sounding, where he comes and says, hey, I'm making the right decision in keeping Valverde, right? Rather than what do you think we should do? But it's obvious that there's been a pretty strong backlash to the way this season wound up. I mean, it seems crazy. They won the title, and yet to a lot of Barcelona fans, a lot of Barcelona watchers, Valverde's future is very much in doubt.
Also in doubt, Gab, the signing of Ajax central defender Matthijs de Ligt. It seemed to be in the bag not so long ago, but now severe doubts about that. Why?
Well, there's a number of things. I mean, partly the people looking after de Ligt, specifically Mino Raiola, who's trying to get the deal done, he's trying to create an auction, right? So he's punted de Ligt to Real Madrid, he's linked him to Manchester United. He's offered him, obviously, of course, to Barcelona. Some reports here in England saying United are pulling out of the race for de Ligt. That all seems to be up in the air, but I think it's a numbers game for Barca, frankly. They've already spent a ton of money on Frankie de Jong. They definitely can spend money to reinforce the squad, but if you're going to spend 80 million on de Jong, you're going to go after Griezmann, who's going to cost you probably north of 120 as well, then it becomes difficult to also add de Ligt unless you sell the likes of Coutinho, of Rakitic, Silason's another one who's probably going to go, unless you sell all these guys at big numbers, and that's frankly a little bit difficult to do right now. So de Ligt is still out there, not committed yet, and he himself has come out and said, well, look, I'm in no rush about my future. I haven't signed up with anybody. Let's see what happens. And so I think this is a story that could run for a while.
Interesting. Stevie, let me ask you first. If you're Barcelona, you've only got the money to sign one of these players, Antoine Griezmann or Matthijs de Ligt, what do you do?
I think you go for de Ligt. You only have to look at what happened against Liverpool in the Champions League to see that you really have problems defensively. You still have players in your squad and on your team that can score goals, but you don't seem to have many who are able to keep them out. So right now, I think de Ligt would be the key. I
thought you might go with the defender. I had a sneaking feeling. Are you going to go the other way, Paulie?
Yeah, but I'll tell you for why also. If de Ligt goes to Barca, yes, they need that player in that particular position, but Frankie de Jong now, he'll settle in a little bit quicker because he'll have one of his mates. I know it might sound a little bit soppy to say that, but that's a fact of life. If you can go to a club and you've got somebody who you know his game, especially in the spine of the side, I think that's fantastic for the club. I think it's fantastic for the players, for them to settle in very, very quickly.
So you'd go de Ligt as well?
Yes, I would, yes.
Yeah. Gab, do you concur if it really boils down to a straight choice, Barcelona spending money on one of these two, which way would you go?
Well, we need to remember Griezmann is considerably more expensive than de Ligt. So I think that might factor into it too. I get what the boys are saying, and I'm definitely in the minority here. I do think Gerard Piqué actually overall had a very good season. It's certainly better than he's had it in previous years. Maybe his international retirement helps. I think there's more to Lenglet. I think a lot of the problems that where Barcelona's defense looked exposed, a lot of that had to do with issues in midfield and issues at fullback. So I wouldn't go all in on de Ligt just yet if you had to make a choice. But then again, I'm not wild about Griezmann either as being the answer, given that hopefully at some point you're going to have a fit Dembele who's going to play regularly. So to me, this whole situation is pretty messy. I think they need to start by basically telling themselves, we're going to go and we're going to sell first. Griezmann and Ligt will still be around. There's no huge rush on the part of our competitors to go and move forward with them, because Real Madrid have also been linked, but they also would have to shift players. They just signed another center back in Eder Militao. It's hard to see them shifting Varane or let alone Sergio Ramos to make way for Ligt. United, we'll see. Again, reports saying that they've ruled themselves out. Maybe they're not so sure. So I would try to buy a little time and try to sell first and see exactly what I have.
Well, if you ever miss an edition of our show, who's going to win? Villa are the favourites. Can they get over the line?
It's one of those things, you don't know who's going to win. I mean, that's why the bookies make so much money, because this is on a knife edge, this game.
Yeah.
It's all about which players rise to the occasion. They're going to be reading, or they have been reading constantly, how much this game is worth. You know, the chairman, the board, they all want to get to the Premier League, the holy grail of football. And it's how you play, you know, on the day. You know, Villa have got this kid called Grealish, who's...
Give us a prediction, Paul. Who's going up in your view?
I'm going to go with Villa then.
Villa?
I mean, I've got no confidence in it.
Stevie?
Yeah,
I'm confidence in Derby?
I'm going to go with Villa. It's not that I don't have confidence in Derby. I think Villa's level all season has been at a certain height. They've been so consistent. Derby can be brilliant, but they can also be awful. And Villa beating them twice in the regular season, I think, will count for a lot.
And beating them handily as well.
Yeah,
7-0.
4-0 and 3-0.
7-0 on
so
aggregate.
I'm going Villa.
Villa, of course, lost in last season's playoff final at Wembley to Fulham. When you look at the odds makers, well, they certainly favour Aston Villa quite heavily, actually. 5-4 on Derby County. You can get 13-5 on them winning.
I didn't think it'd be like that. I thought it'd be a lot closer than that, especially this type of game.
Now then, you can see that Championship playoff final Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Winner take all for a place in the English Premier League.
What feels like almost a 3-year build-up to this World Cup. Julie, I'll start with you. Based on everything you've seen so far here in 2019, is this group ready to defend their title?
Absolutely. I will say, though, it wasn't the game that looked pretty and probably the game they necessarily wanted, but they get 3 goals out of this last game. They get 3 wins out of this send-off series. And most importantly, they have a healthy roster now going into Europe. You have depth. You have minutes for the players off the bench. So there's a lot of good things. And even though in some of the first halves of these series, they haven't looked their best, as a team, as we did often, you spin it and say, all right, we're saving those for, we're saving those finishes for the World Cup, or, we're going to get it done there. And it's those little things they'll have to refine in the next couple weeks. But this is a good team, for sure.
I like the positives from this game. It did not look as pretty as we would have liked. It wasn't as crisp as we had hoped. But what I love is that they tried to solve it by using sophistication. I loved it that they kept the ball on the ground. And I don't think they learned a ton, but they knew that their bench was someone they could rely on. And when the time came and they made the substitutions, those were impact players. There are game winners in the starting 11, but maybe more on the bench. When they fatigued a team, they tweak their tactics a little bit, and then they bring on a Carly Lloyd, a Mallory Pugh, and I don't know, Sam Ewis once again made a name for herself where I think it's pretty hard to leave her out of the starting 11.
All right, we heard from Kate and Julie. Now let's hear from the head coach, Jill Ellis. This is what she had to say assessing today's performance.
We'll start there. I think our depth is critical, and I think so. There was several, big takeaways from this. It was being healthy, getting valuable minutes for a lot of different players, keeping a clean sheet, scoring some goals. I told the players at the beginning before we went out, I said, let's see if we can have a good feeling after we leave here, ready to go. We did, we did throw a lot at them in terms of, checking some boxes and making sure we got a lot of things covered. Because when we leave here, everything is, it's keeping it simple. It's doing what we do as best as we can. So yeah, I think we got a lot of things accomplished today in the game.
We hear the phrase checking boxes. What questions are left unanswered, Julie, as we head to France?
I think think the most important thing, actually, rather than what's left unanswered, is that feeling that Jill talked about. I mean, that's huge for a team going into a World Cup. So much of that is, are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like you have checked the boxes? I mean, those are all the elements that coming into this send-off series they were trying to get to your point, those unanswered questions were, do they have a consistent enough back line? Can Nair get it done without World Cup experience? Hope Solo and Brianna Scurry have been dominating the last 5 World Cups. And maybe she doesn't get tested. That would be my one question mark going in. She probably didn't get tested enough in these send-off games. But feeling and confidence is everything. And hopefully, it's hard when you're not on the inside, but you go in as a 23 that's in it for each other.
Well, I think it's interesting that many teams, it's the sum of its parts, right? That makes it greater than the individual. This is a group whose individual self-belief, that's winning them games sometimes because the system hasn't been consistent. It hasn't allowed collective play where they're dominating games. It's the individual stepping up. That self-belief is still there. My question is, can it grow into collective belief where they rely on the system, but also the players to come and win them the game? And that's what I want to see. And I think that will grow because of that self-belief. You need that first before you win anything, to Julie's point. But I need that collective belief in the system as well, and then they're unbeatable.
Julie, you're heading to France. Kate and I are basically moving to Connecticut for the entire Women's World Cup.
Sorry.
The reason is...
I mean, not sorry. Connecticut is a lovely place, but it's not France.
And I get to hang out with Sebi.
The reason is we're going to have daily coverage.
I do have a little sympathy for you, Paul. Just a little.
When you're looking at it from the slow-mo, and the truck have put a little clip together, it does look really, really bad. Now, when you see the ball over the top, I was looking, as soon as I see the lad pull the trigger with the ball over the top, I'm looking where the goalkeeper is, because I know that the ball is going over the back line. Yeah. That's point number one. So I'm looking where the goalkeeper is. He was a little deep on his start position. Now, actually, when the ball was played, I think where Matt made the mistake is that he had no reason to leave his feet. If he had just attacked the ball, he might have got away with it. But, yeah, as I said in commentary, yes, it did look dreadful. As it happened in real time, I thought he'd get a yellow card. I really did.
In the end, it ended up being similar to Schumacher in the '82 World Cup. It was one of those.
Yeah, I mean...
I remember Schumacher only got a yellow. That was back in those days, though.
Thank you for making my point.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but the difference between the Schumacher one and this one is that in real time, it was tough to tell sitting actually looking at a screen on your TV. I'm sure the referee had a different view of it, but for us watching on a screen, it looked harsh. But when you see the replay, no question, 100%, it's a red card.
I mean, look, I'm still discussing the handball as well. I really am. Brandon Bye, what is he to do?
He's protecting his face.
The ball smashed at him from, what, 2 yards out. I'm still not convinced. Stevie thinks it's a pen. I think it's really a fine line. Does he turn? Does he protect in his face? Look, the referee gave a penalty. So, you know, all well and good. But VAR was involved quite a lot in that game last night. The Revolution didn't get a penalty in the first half. I agree it wasn't a penalty, but it's always about interpretation. Always will be.
More MLS action to get to. FC Cincinnati and the New York Red Bulls, aren't they, in the entire league? They have an eight-point gap in the West. Seattle play Sunday night against Sporting Kansas City. Dallas still just the right side of the playoff line, as we're about a third of the way through the MLS season now. In the Spanish second division, they play on until July the 31st. I'm sure they play 50 games in the break. Still playing. The reason I bring that up is there was an incident today in the second division, Gimnastic playing Elche. And in front of not too many people, thankfully, for that goalkeeper.
Massive crowd. What is he doing? Stevie, you were an ex-goalkeeper coach at the Revolution. What is this all about?
Yeah, this is a bit... Keep your eyes on the ball and stop it. Hey, listen...
Honestly.
We should put his name up in light, shouldn't we? Bernabe Barragan.
Even the best do that. There was a guy called Ray Clemens did it in a very important game. Scotland against England.
Scotland.
Exactly. This pretty much like that.
We remember it, Paul.
I knew he'd bring that up.
Even the best do it.
That was a Kenny Dalglish goal, wasn't it?
It was.
And seemingly even the worst do it as well.
Yeah, well...
You don't want to do that when you're struggling against relegation in the Spanish second division, like
no, it doesn't help.
Gimnastic.
Doesn't help.
They managed to get a 3-3 draw despite that howler. That will do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow, but before that, we have a pile of your questions to tuck into. These two at the ready for ESPN FC Extra Time. All right, here we go with Extra Time as we recover from the Serie A ending, which was some ending, wasn't it? Yeah, there was a lot of in the Serie A today. Jordan...
Not for Empoli.
No, not for Empoli. Jordan already anticipating the lovely summer transfer season. Has a good point to make. He said Coutinho wanted out of Liverpool, Neymar wanted out of Barcelona, Sanchez wanted out of Arsenal. Is there a developing theme that players should be careful what they wish for, i.e. Hazard and Griezmann in particular? Maybe you can throw a couple of others in there. Players wanting to leave for fresher pastures, maybe bigger pastures.
I get two of the three.
Yeah.
It's true. Coutinho and Sanchez.
Yeah.
I don't get Neymar wanting to leave Barcelona.
Oh, you get those, why those two wanted to leave?
Yeah, I understand why those two wanted to leave, but the Neymar one is the one that I was really shocked at.
Couldn't be the man, could he? It was already the man.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but can't argue with the point. You know, the names.
It's strange in some regard where, you know, you look at the great teams of years gone by. You know, they always had a top man, and everybody knew their stations, so to speak. Nowadays, in the modern era, it seems that that's gone nowadays. Everybody wants to have his team. Everybody wants to have his say on who's coming to the club, which is. It's completely foreign to me. It's unheard of as far as I'm concerned. I thought as a footballer we were just paid to turn up, train well, do the best you can on Saturday and win trophies.
Would Hazard or Griezmann struggle in the same way that some of those above mentioned have struggled? Or would it be different?
Obviously I know more about the Hazard situation. I personally thought that they did a deal with him before the season started because he played with a bit of a smile on his face. There's no doubt that he's a fantastic player. He's put his miles in for Chelsea. If he wants to go, it's maybe similar to the Petr Cech thing where Abramovich says, "Okay, roll on," you know. I think Hazard deserves that one big. If Real Madrid want him, I'd love to see him play for Real Madrid.
Well, there's no guarantees, is there, at the Bernabeu? No. Anything could happen.
No, there isn't.
Gab, let's bring you in on the next. So Ted, who's a regular provider of questions, wants to know who you think out of the two Milan teams might have a brighter future over the next 5 years.
I'm gonna say Inter for the simple reason that they've gotten a lot of their ducks in a row off the pitch already. I mean, 65,000 people showing up at the San Siro every week to go and watch this tripe shows the amount of support and the amount of love that the fans are willing to give them. Commercially, they've grown, and they're out of the financial fair play settlement. Now, the next step is really, really important, whether they keep Spalletti or more likely go with somebody else. You know, they have to get that right in the transfer market. Milan's issue is Milan are further behind in their development, because remember, this time last year, they were still owned by the snake oil salesman who didn't have any money, and who eventually defaulted on his loan, and that's how these new owners at Elliott came in. And they've inherited a mess. You know, Milan still facing financial fair play sanctions from the era before Lee Yong-hong, as well as the summer and the crazy spending that happened during the Lee Yong-hong era. They have serious issues to sort out, and that's frustrating for them, because you've got an ownership that's willing to invest, that has invested some, but I think it's still a long road ahead. Good news is they're better off today than they were 2 years ago.
Has Gab ever eaten tripe?
I wanted to ask Gab what the Italian for tripe was, because I think we need to know.
That would be trippa.
Gab, have you ever eaten it? I'm assuming you've tried it.
I have, yes, in fact, and you can ask Matteo Bonetti about this, because trippa alla milanese, so tripe Milanese style, is one of the traditional dishes from my hometown of Milan, and supposedly Matteo's too. Can't imagine he ate too much of it down in Miami, but you never know.
I think they served it up in the hospital he was born, Gab, but that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
Tim, have you ever had tripe?
Gab, next one. I'll stay with you on this first. If Bayern get Sane and Timo Werner, who they've been linked with, alongside Lucas Hernandez and Benjamin Pavard, would it be the strongest summer transfer window in recent history? That's a lot of ifs, I guess, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as big on Lucas Hernandez and Pavard as some people are, just simply because of the sums involved, especially with Hernandez. But, you throw in the fact that, Tolisso only came back at the end of the season, basically missed the whole year effectively. To use an Arsene Wengerism, he's like a new signing. And if they can get Sane too, Sane, Gnabry, Werner, Lewandowski, Muller, you got a lot of Coleman, you got a lot of options there. You have a midfield that, if people are fit, is still very solid with Thiago and Goretzka, Javi Martinez, Kimmich, everybody loves. And you have some depth at the back. So if they can put those pieces together, Sane, I think, is still far, far away from his ceiling as a footballer.
Stevie, any feelings on this? This will be a blockbuster summer for Bayern if they can get these two to go with those two fullbacks. The Gab's not sure they need.
It doesn't make me go, oh, everybody else in Europe better watch out in the Champions League. It doesn't make me do that. No, I don't. No. Nope.
I'm more interested in the tripe, to be honest, because where I come from, tripe and onions is an absolute delicacy. Ooh. In Lancashire, in Bolton, it's absolutely top gravy.
You add onions to anything, it makes it better, doesn't it?
Absolutely it does.
Gab, does Inter qualifying for the Champions League mean that Icardi might stay after all? Asks Alex H.
I think actually whether Icardi stays or goes is probably unrelated. I think a lot's going to depend on the new manager or indeed the old manager if Spalletti sticks around. I still think it's more likely that he's going to go. And incidentally, Spalletti was very, very harsh speaking after the match tonight, at the way he feels that he's been treated, with everybody assuming that Conte's coming in or somebody else. My guess is that he will move on unless there's a new boss and he says, no, look, I'm going to try to build bridges with Icardi, get him back to where he wants to be. He's going to sign a new contract and he's going to stick around. But that's unlikely.
Yeah, finally. Gab's hogging all the questions today, guys. Hope you're okay with that.
No, plow on.
The Sierra is very eagle-eyed and points out that the pocket square seems familiar, Gab. Do you own any other ones?
I do. I own a whole bunch of them, actually, and they all look alike, actually. I do have some in different colors, which I might break out. Also, it's nearly Memorial Day, which means that I'm now allowed to wear light-colored blazers. So you might see some new combinations now.
Ooh.
Many different pocket squares in the closet of Mr. Marcotti.
You got yours, Jim?
No, I haven't got one today.
You got one. Yours is camouflage, though.
Yeah. I normally have one, but I didn't have one today.
Yeah. Do you ever wear them, though, Paul? You do sometimes.
Mine doubles as a bottom of a pocket.
It's 2 for 1. Yeah. It's 2 for 1, this lad.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I use it. I can put stuff in it as well. And then when I don't want to put stuff in it, I just do like that, and it looks $1 million.
I know certain people that used to tuck a little.
Like most of his pockets, there's not a lot in most of them.
They're always empty, so you can pull out the. It's too easy, Stevie.
Too easy. Dear.
I know certain people that used to tuck a little bit of paper into the top pocket. I did.
When you were at school?
Could you get scissors out and then cut it like that into your...
no, you do the up and down, the zigzag one.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that looks crown on the head, yeah. ESPN FC back tomorrow. We'll have a championship playoff final to review.